So welcome everyone. This event is being recorded. You can turn off your camera if you would like to. Please stay muted and use the chat function to have a conversation among yourselves. You can introduce yourselves and the land you live on in the chat. If you need help, you can message Shaylee using the chat feature. Her name includes tech support. And this is our AGM for the year 2023, even though it's in 2024. And I would like to start by inviting Sharon to offer a land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Guy. Hello, everyone. My name is Sharon Marshall, and I'm a Cree Métis member of the board here at WeCan. I'm coming to you today from the traditional unceded and ancestral territory of the Snanawas First Nation of the Coast Salish peoples. The West Coast Climate Action Network recognizes that our movement is inseparable from the movements for racial, social, and economic justice and for Indigenous rights. We acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, encompassing the lands now known as Canada, where our participants are joining from today. We honor the courageous resistance of Turtle Island's Indigenous peoples who daily demonstrate what it means to choose life in the face of colonial violence, unapologetic existence in the face of erasure, and liberation in the face of suppression. We call on our community members settled on these lands to follow the lead of Indigenous peoples in reimagining ways of being that honor our collective humanity. Miigwech.
Thank you, Sharon. So we have confirmed that we have quorum, and I'm going to just go to the slides to, hang on, take that with me. So go back to the, going to go. So this is our annual general meeting. This is what's happening tonight. Established quorum, we did the annual report, financial statement, candidates for the board. There are now, one of the candidates has withdrawn because she's got another too much going on. New thing come up for her. So there's 7 candidates. Voting for the new directors, appreciation to our departing directors. And then if we have time, a discussion on what more can we be doing to help our member groups. These are our voting members, as I showed before. If your name is there, then you can vote for anything coming up. The first practical thing on the agenda is the minutes of the our last AGM. And they are, I did send them to everyone, but I will admit that the email I sent everyone 2 days after I sent it was rejected by Microsoft. It said it didn't get sent. Can someone put from the script, put the minutes in the chat? And is there a motion to accept the minutes of last year's AGM? Can you raise your yellow electronic hand if there's a motion, if someone wants to move it?
We still have a number of legacy hands up.
I can't see, that's the problem.
I'll move it, Guy.
Moved by Catherine.
Catherine.
Is it seconded by anyone?
I can
I'll second it. I'll go ahead.
Can you name yourself so that Ricky knows for the minutes for today's meeting?
Eric, right?
Eric seconded. Any discussion about this? Hearing none, all in favor, can you show your hand if you're, you can just raise your hand if you're, your yellow hand if you're, yeah, put your hand up electronically if you're voting in favor. And Ricky, yes, lots of hands going on. I'm going to declare that as passed. So then moving on to our annual report.
May I make a suggestion before we move on?
Yes, Tom.
Next minutes, please list the attendees.
Yes.
Good point. Well done, Tom. Thank you for that. We will do that next year round. I'm identifying people by voice only now, so it's lucky I've known Tom for 20 years. So the annual report.
Guy,
Yes.
could you also, when you're doing the vote, ask if there are any people who are voting against and
Yes.
abstain for each vote?
Yes.
And that gets recorded.
Yeah, I was assuming when discussion came up, did anyone wish to vote against accepting the minutes? No. Okay. So annual report. Just to remind us why we're here, the frigging climate crisis. the disaster it's bringing on us time and time again, the recent wildfires in North Nelson, the heat wave in New Delhi, and in Pakistan, I should add. At the same time, we've got this rapid shift to clean energy that would save the world $12 trillion if we really got on board with it. So the solutions are strong and vibrant. We just need to get with them. And British Columbia's progress, our trend is going nowhere. We've got a huge amount of work to do to get BC on track. So there are climate action group members all across BC, and all of these communities have one or more climate action groups that are members of WeCan. There are 32 different realms of climate action. Each of these realms, work is happening. There's so much work happening, we can't summarize it without our brains going crazy. Just to take a small sampling, this is just the first three. All these groups are working to stop LNG, or to stop TMX, or to stop fracking. And all these groups are working on provincial climate policy, or working with social justice allies, or working with Indigenous allies. There's a huge amount of work going on with our 242 member groups. So our board of directors meets twice a month. We have 11 elected positions and 2 positions appointed for individuals who bring an Indigenous perspective. We have 8 teams, each of which will be reporting tonight, and an executive committee that meets weekly, and Shaylee, our paid admin assistant. You'll meet them all shortly. This is our current board of directors. Estimate is that we've had 350 volunteer hours over the year of 2023. And Sharon has been on the board, one of our appointed directors, bringing an Indigenous perspective for quite some time now. And on last Thursday, we appointed Summer Tyance, who can't be with us tonight, but she's our second appointed director. Our executive committee meets every Monday morning to plan the week ahead. And one of our challenges has been to ensure that we have the funds to meet our financial needs. To this end, in May of this year, we decided to cease having a part-time network coordinator, which cost us $2,500 a month, and instead to have a paid admin assistant costing $500 a month. So Shaylee on the left is our new admin assistant. Marie and Monica have both been our network coordinators during the last year. And thanks to all 3 of you. Our overall strategic goals from our strategic plan are to work to build a more effective climate movement in which groups can connect and support each other, to work to understand the strengths and needs of our member groups so we can better support you and to promote your work, to work to develop a full overview of the climate movement in BC, to create and sustain good relationships with our climate allies, to better understand their strengths and needs and support their work. These are people in the climate realm who are not actual members, that includes First Nations, poverty reduction groups, housing groups. Improve the communication between our teams, between the teams and the board, and between WeCan and our member groups, and to continue to cultivate a culture of kindness, inclusivity, and respect in all that we do. Oops. So our members team, and each one of us will take us in turn to share our team reports. So I'll start with the members team. We've grown from 214 to 242 members since our last AGM. We work to develop relationships with each of our member groups. In March, we were granted an award from the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions, which enabled us to hire Juliana as our climate action group's intern. And some of you will have met Juliana already. She will be coming to all of you for an interview over the next 2 months. She's interviewing 100 people, leading people in 100 of our member groups for completion by September. We're also working to complete a web-based map of all our member groups and to think how we can meet the needs of our member groups moving forward. So next up is our Kappa team. Tara, would you like to speak to our Kappa team?
Yeah, thanks, Guy. And this is a nice segue into what our Kappa team has been up to. We have had about 5 Kappas or climate provincial assemblies till date. Our first Kappa was to familiarize our member groups with each other, amplify their campaigns, strategies, goals, and how they would align with diverse climate movements. Our second Kappa was on building solidarity with social and racial justice movements, Indigenous land and water defenders, and multiple faith groups. This highlighted the intersectionality of the climate crisis. We were building momentum, but where were the good climate policies? So our third Kappa was on how to accelerate BC's climate movement. We heard from 10 remarkable climate organizers and activists. We took these learnings to a subsequent Kappa and utilized best practices to adopt them in our work. There needed to be a momentous push. So we launched our Frack-Free BC Kappa in partnership with Dogwood, the Wilderness Committee, and Stand.Earth. This showcased the horrific fracked wells dotting the northern BC landscape and the ever-increasing LNG projects. We learned about regulatory processes or the lack of them. In solidarity also, we amplified the Frack-Free gathering taking place from the 7th to the 9th of June in downtown Vancouver. Our message to politicians, lobbyists, and industry is loud and clear. We are not a climate clique, but a climate movement. And I'll pass it on to Catherine.
Good evening, everybody. I'm honored to represent the Indigenous engagement team here tonight. The Indigenous, do you want to pop up the next slide? Whoever's doing slides. The Indigenous engagement team was formed to be a continuous worker to bring an Indigenous perspective to all of our activities that we can, and to build trusting relationships with our First Nations leaders and leaders of BC climate initiatives, Indigenous climate initiatives in perspective, especially. If you pop up the next slide, we are working in partnership with Creative Collaboration, Inc. They have been helping us create the Indigenous Climate Action Data Quilt. That's a database of all the Indigenous climate action initiatives taking place in the province. And I use the word all advisedly because we're continuously discovering new ones. And if anybody knows of any that aren't in the quilt, please let us know. Right now, we've also been spinning off of that a series of lunch and learns that feature projects, and we've had 3 of them so far in the last 12 months. They're all available on our website, so if you want to go and have a look at them, they're inspiring and incredibly informative. And I'll pass it on to the communications team.
Alison, your turn.
Thank you. The communications team looks after our technology platforms, our website, our newsletter, and social media, which we are constantly trying to grow and improve. Our weekly newsletter reaches 4,000 plus people and currently has a 40% open rate. So I'll of course say a plug to share the newsletter and get more people subscribed. And we've promoted up to 150 climate action campaigns over the last year. Facebook pages are growing, and we've have 4 active members, 60 volunteer hours, not counting the newsletter, which has now issued 50 issues and has taken upwards of 200 volunteer hours.
Okay, so now we're on to Ricky, the provincial team.
Thank you. The provincial team is the newest team, and we've spent quite a bit of time getting ourselves organized, and we're looking the activities in the past year, verging into 2024, included an open letter to Premier David Eby, where we were trying to build a relationship with provincial government ministers and senior staff to try and represent to the breadth and the depth of the work that WeCan members are doing. We have recently submitted an open letter on better transit to all political parties. We aim in the coming year to meet with major climate NGOs because we have both large members and small ones, and we want to make sure that both can benefit from each other's work and presence across the province. And finally, we're working to identify who is doing what on in preparation for the October election in terms of election materials and actions, and try to increase member take-up of potential actions in the time frame leading up to the elections.
Thanks. So now we're on to the Jedi team. Catherine, again.
Hi again. Also honored to be part of the Jedi team. Do you want to pop up the next slide? I'm gonna let you guys read this on your own. You all have received a link to the slides, but what I'll say briefly is that the Jedi team was formed to ensure that WECAN is acting in alignment with its stated values of inclusion. And we have developed a proposal to the board that included observations on how we perceived WECAN was operating, the degree to which we were in alignment with our Jedi values, along with 6 questions for the board to consider and 8 recommendations for actions in the immediate and long-term time to keep us in alignment.
Thank you, Catherine. So now the local government team. Sebastian.
I'm just going to kick it over to Eric for this one.
Eric.
Thanks.
We'll move you from Victoria, from Burnaby City Hall to Victoria in that case, right?
There we go. Yeah, and thank you, Sebastian, for giving me an entire 10 minutes to prepare for giving this update. No, it's all good. So there's a lot of information on this slide, and I have my own notes to go by, but we've had a year of reflection on the local government team because it's not an election year, and so we've taken some time to reflect back on the election of 2022, and to think about what worked, things that didn't work, and what we need to be doing differently next time. And then we're continuing our planning and strategic planning that we've started, and it's continuing into the calendar year. That makes it sound like we didn't do a lot. We actually did. And I didn't realize that until Sebastian put this slide together, and I went, holy smokes, we did a lot. So we put this directory together of all the elected councillors and mayors with contact information. We've used that several times to communicate back to them across the provinces, and also in advance of like regional conferences. And then we started this storytelling initiative, which was a brilliant idea. We did a pilot of 2 long-form video interviews that are on the WECAN YouTube channel. And those, ultimately, we weren't able to get the funding that we had hoped to advance that project, but it was a lot of fun, and I think it was useful to get some of those stories out. Then, and of course, throughout the year, we were doing networking with different climate organizations and associations on municipal climate action, and a lot of meetings and things that happened throughout the network, right? So there's a lot of network effect going on. And the last thing, and this is something we're working on and moving forward, is this concept of accountability. We want to be able to hold our elected climate champions accountable for the things they said they would do. How do we go about doing that? That's one of the things that we're figuring out. We've sent out some questionnaires, and we've got some other ideas to move that forward. So that's kind of where we're at the moment.
Great. Thanks, Eric. And now Lily, let's talk about our fundraising team.
Yes, next slide. Okay, so as you know, the Ice Bucket Challenge raised 115 million worldwide for ALS Association. And maybe what we should be doing is putting on a no ice bucket challenge for climate action. An idea there. Okay, next slide. Generally, our target for donations for last year was $20,000, and we ended up with $33,185, which is a really good result. The main money comes from our donors. We have monthly donations. People will give one at a time, a single donation. November, we have an annual giving campaign. And last year was Guy's 75th birthday, and so we also raised over $10,000. And we also asked for first time for voluntary membership fees. Now, I think going on in the future, we want to make sure in terms of our monthly donors, right now we have 30 donors. Our target is to get 100. And we really want to push that. is an excellent source of steady income. Guy's not going to be 75 again, but we need another type of major campaign. Maybe the no ice bucket challenge might be one of them. In terms of voluntary membership, I'm quite disappointed because we have over 200 and so groups, but only 38 groups have contributed in a voluntary fee. So we need to really up that up. Next slide. We also have done a lot of grant applications. They have not been very successful. One of the reasons being the foundations normally want to give to on-the-ground projects. What we can need are funding for our core, like to pay for our website and for staff and so on. And the other thing we found is a lot of the grant applicant people who give money want to give to organizations that have charitable status, which WeCan doesn't. So our recommendation is that we actually look into applying for charitable status for WeCan, or finding another group that can handle our money who has charitable status, they're a qualified donee, and then also continue to search for core foundations. Next slide. We also have the Give campaign going on and a bunch of other activities. And then next slide. One of the things that we put on the website last year was our legacy campaign. It tells you how you can actually write out your will, including the actual wording that you can use for your will, and other ways you can leave a gift, like in your pension plan or your insurance plan. Next slide. Right now, for this year, we've raised about $22,000 to start the year off. And the last slide is we also produced a fundraising toolkit, which you can download from the website, and it's free. And thank you very much to Gisela Rockert. That's me.
Thanks, Lily. And so to all of our supporters who've, whether you're a monthly donor or your action group is giving a voluntary fee, or you're an intermittent donor, we thank you so much, right? So now I think, yeah, in conclusion to our annual report is just this single thought. We have 242 member groups. We're nowhere near a position when we can say that the whole climate movement in BC is pulling together. That's where we want to get to. So we really feel a synergy between all of our groups and all of our work, and we can really have the impact that we need to have with the determination that these kids are showing. So I'd like to motion, be it resolved to accept the West Coast Climate Action Network Society's annual report for 2023. Before discussion, is there someone to move that we, this motion? Harry Crosby has moved it. Seconded by anyone? Seconded by Sharon. Is there any discussion? Please, I'm going to stop sharing temporarily, and so I can see everyone. Any discussion before we move to adopt our annual report?
Guy, there's two Sharons here, and that was not me.
The Sharon Cross, that was the other one. That's quite correct. Thank you, Sharon. Yes. Roger, you wanted to chip in.
I would like to congratulate all those wonderful leaders that we've had in the association. You've done just an excellent job. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. Karen, you're muted.
I just wanted to echo what Roger just said, that's all.
All righty, and I see Robert's clapping his hands. Thank you for that. We're not going to say no to appreciation. So can I have a vote in favor of adopting the report? You can all just raise your hands, physical or electronic. Are there any abstentions? If you bring your hands down again. Any abstentions? Anyone want to vote no?
Oh, make sure you lower the hand.
Yes, make sure the hands. Tom, is that an abstention or a vote against? Or no, it's nothing. All in favor. Okay, I declare that motion passed. I'm going to go back to screen sharing and see what comes up next, because I don't know what's in this PowerPoint.
It's the financial report.
That's right. It is our financial report. So this is back to Lily.
Okay, so next slide, please. Oh, too fast. Okay, so this is our financial statement. Our fiscal year is from January to December. We started with an opening bank account of $21,159. And then the revenue, I already gave you a breakdown in terms of the donations and so on. And we also got a 10% admin fee from the Indigenous Data Quilt Project. So our total income for the year was $55,844. In terms of expenditures, we have the major ones, which are the BC Registry, communications and tech fees, stationery and printing. The board liability insurance has gone up. It used to be 400, now it's about 650. Staffing. Last year, we started off with Mari Pickett, and then she left. Monica came on. We paid for the workplace insurance, and the total staffing came to $33,194. Program fees are mainly honoraria for the speakers at their CAPAs and lunch and learns. We are a member of CAM, which is the Climate Action Network nationally. That's a $40 membership. We have banking fees, and we also paid a deposit, a rental for a board retreat. Unfortunately, we didn't have the board retreat. We were very worried about cash flow, so that did not happen. In the end, our expenditures were $38,583, leaving us a balance to carry to this year of $17,260 odd. So that's my report. Can I just have the next slide, please? That shows you in terms of our budget, the majority of our money went into staffing, as you can see. So I would like to get a mover and seconder, I think, yes.
Yes, so I'm going to stop. So that's the motion to accept the West Coast financial statement, and rolled into it at the same time to waive the appointment of auditors for our society because it's not required under our bylaws. So I'm going to stop sharing and was someone willing to move that we adopt the financial statement? Sharon Cross.
Accept, please, not adopt.
To accept the financial statement. Can everyone put their hands down first so we can see who's voting? Sharon, Roger, and Roger, your hand down too. Okay. Anyone would like to move that we accept the financial report? Please raise your electronic hand or wave. Roger, you got there first again. And Tara, I take it you are seconding this. Is there any discussion before we move to a vote? Any questions? Robert, is that a question or an old hand? I think it's an old hand. Here, if there's Harry, do you have a question? You're muted.
I just want to point out that the line which says total income 55, I think that's the total of the previous year's assets combined with this year's income. I don't know if there's a better way to state that.
Could be total revenue, perhaps.
But it's not this year's revenue, it's this year's revenue combined with last year's assets, right? I'm not an accountant. I wouldn't know how to state it. I'm sorry.
What I could do is put total income in brackets, opening account plus revenue.
In this line here. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop sharing it. Let's assume that change has been made. Is there any other discussion? Anyone wish to vote against it or to abstain? Otherwise, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of accepting the financial statement? I see lots of hands going up. That's fabulous. Thank you. I declare that accepted. And now I'm going to go back to the screen sharing. And I think our next thing up is, why is that not advancing? Back to the reminder of the agenda. We're now up to the election, when the 7 candidates each have a chance for a 5-minute pitch. So this is the order you'll be speaking in: Calvin, then Mariama, then Robert, then Eric, then Michael Vecchio, then Sirat, and then Harry. So I'm going to stop sharing. And Calvin, offer you your 3. Wait a minute, we have some hands up first. Laura, do you have something you want to chip in? Laura Sachs. You're muted.
You're muted.
No. Ricky?
No.
Okay, Lily, you want to add anything? No, the old hands. Okay,
All points.
Calvin, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi everyone. So I'm Calvin. I live in Golden, traditional territories of the Ktunaxa and Secwepemc peoples. I grew up in Ontario. I've been environmentally conscious ever since I was young and in elementary school. I've been reading about climate change and political issues. I went to school at Trent University. I did a bachelor's in environmental studies and my master's in sustainability studies. In university, I was heavily involved in climate activism. I led the fossil fuel divestment campaign on my campus from 2012 to 2016. We did a lot of different things during that time. We started a petition with over 1,000 signatures, sorry. We got endorsements from different student groups, started a faculty open letter. I presented to the Board of Governors with a friend and colleague, and we organized a rally on campus, and I wrote several articles in the school paper about divestment as well. I was also the student representative on the Environmental Advisory Board and the Environment and Sustainability Commissioner of my student union group. I was also the coordinator of a group called Sustainable Trent, and in addition to divestment, we also worked on a lot of other issues, including food security, pipeline activism, and I was in charge of coordinating meetings, recruiting new volunteers, sending out meeting agendas, and so forth. I wrote my master's thesis on the effectiveness of different tactics and strategies to the Trans Mountain Pipeline in British Columbia. So I did most of my research remotely, and my research methods included interviews with campaigners, First Nations and politicians, and participation as well. So I was going to a lot of the protests and demonstrations in Burnaby and Vancouver at the time, around 2018, 2019. I volunteered with other environmental groups over the years, including Neighbors United, Dogwood, and My Sea to Sky, doing phone calling and door knocking. I moved the town of Golden to commit to Neighbors United's 100% renewable energy plan in 2021. I also asked them to declare a climate emergency in that same presentation, which they did not do. And in 2022, I presented to Powell River City Council asking them to endorse the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, which they did shortly after. I applied for a grant from Columbia Basin Trust to finish installing solar panels on Golden Secondary School, which was successful in 2023, I believe, and they are
30 seconds more.
Okay. I'm on the board of directors of Wild Site Golden and head of the Climate Action Group. I've organized a lot of events over the years, including climate cafes, film screenings. I've wrote several articles, including in the National Observer, Golden Star, and Nelson Star. I'm a youth committee member of Youth Climate Corps BC, the air quality coordinator for Wild Site Golden, and previously the invasive plant coordinator, the electric vehicle car share coordinator for Golden Community Resources Society, and I'm the BC Green Party candidate for Columbia River Revelstoke in the provincial election.
And in your spare time, you get 1 hour's sleep a night, right? Thanks, Calvin. How would you pronounce it? Beauchesne?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. So just to remind people, we have 6 vacancies on the board, and there are 7 people standing. Among the we also internally need a new treasurer and a new secretary, but we're not voting for those positions. We will do that once the new board meets. So next up is Mariama Krubali. Mariama, the floor is yours. And am I pronouncing it right?
Yes, good evening to you all. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the opportunity. My name is Mariama J. Krubali. I am an international student from the Gambia, West Africa. I have a background in development studies. My bachelor's is in development studies, and then I have a master's in international relations and diplomacy. I am currently pursuing my second master's in public policy and global affairs at the University of British Columbia. I am someone who is enthusiastic about the environment. I've always been passionate about the environment. I am a youth activist who has been involved in different activities going up to date across different issues, and the environment is one of them. So I participate in environmental campaigns. I also participate in drama and poetry to educate the people about, the environment, ways to preserve it, and then also be mindful of climate change. Like in the past, I've even written like an article that was published in our national newspapers, which can still be accessed, on Google by typing my name. So that will show that I've been like involved in climate change issues, and then I am really passionate about it. I want to join WeCan because I believe that what WeCan focuses on aligns with my interests and passion. I've like participated in tree planting activities annually back home, and then I've also participated in environmental restoration initiatives such as the planting of mangroves on wetland areas back home through student associations and amongst others. So I believe that WeCan focuses on what I am interested in, and then I also want to participate in the process because I believe that climate change is a global problem, and then it needs the intervention of everybody. So I aspire to participate in such initiatives wherever I find myself in, because its effects transcends beyond boundaries. So it will be an honor to participate through climate initiatives in WeCan, and then contribute my quota to what you are doing while I am in Canada before I leave, after my studies to go back home. So I thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Mariama, is that how I pronounce it right? Mariama?
Yes, that's correct.
Lovely, thank you. Robert Gunn, you're up next. Robert.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. My name is Robert Gunn. I arrived here in 1973 in Port Alberni by way of New Zealand and Peru, where I was working in community development. And then I'm now a settler on the unceded territories of the Hupachasat and Sishat when I came to work for their tribal council. I subsequently worked for the Feds in the Mackenzie River Basin during the Berger gas inquiry. Who can remember that after all? And then for a First Nation in the Skeena. During the following 45 or so years, once back in Alberni, I've had a variety of experience working for an MP in small business consulting and lending, established a shellfish farm in Clackwood Sound, and then finished up with the provincial government. Recently, just back in harness for a few hours a week with a seniors housing volunteer organization out of Ottawa. Clearly, we all know what's going on out there. We know that tipping points have reached. We know that 1.5 is a fiction. And we know that we're all in the same shitstorm, but we all have different waders on. And I think we need to be very aware of the inherent inequalities in government policy responses that we've seen so far. Many of them seem to me to be targeted at the middle class, and government is managing and looking after things for the middle class and for the rich. And then we've also got the gas lobby who would like to frack every rock in the Northeast and use BC Hydro to liquefy and export the resulting product, and blowing our emission targets, and they're going to be impossible to reach. Locally, I was the founder of Alberni Climate Action, and I have to admit to you publicly today that it has not been spectacularly successful. Small communities are not always easy to work in, and we've not been able to seize the moment in any meaningful way, coupled with quite a degree of intransigence within City Hall around such things as an official community plan, which we're involved in, which we've put a lot of work into, and we're being ignored. So there's a tremendous need to be ratcheting up some of our efforts. With regard to WeCan, I am certainly totally behind the mission statement, the uniting and working with organizations and initiatives within British Columbia. There's certainly a need for a clearinghouse, and I was very interested in some of the results from the fundraising. It's quite clear, it seems to me, that the board need to do an evaluation of just how successful we have been with these 242 or so member groups, and how can we not extract just a little more from them, given the clearinghouse nature of so many of the initiatives that the board has been doing over the last couple of years, and how much energy has gone in.
30 seconds more, Rob.
We all know that the readings from Mauna Loa do not lie, that the Keeling curve remains a fund manager's dream and an exponential trajectory to catastrophe. So we all know how much work we've got to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Next up is Eric Minty, who has been a director for the past 2 years and is now running again. Eric.
Thank you. And it's been a delight. So I want to maybe lead with that. I'm going to describe myself through my own lens. First of all, I'm an engineering scientist. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a consultant. In no particular order, I'm a parent, engaged citizen, human, and recently I've become a beekeeper. So I'm very excited about that. And it has been my absolute delight to serve on the board of directors of WeCan for the last 2 years with a group of really extraordinarily inspiring people. June seems to be a time to reflect on things. In 2022, at this time, what was happening in 2022? It was a civic election year. So there was a lot of door knocking happening. It was a busy time. And in 2023, I had finished moving to Victoria. Those two are not unrelated. And I discovered something in moving to Victoria that is described by a word that I'm going to come back to later. But this is a word that we use all the time. And it's a word that I have experienced firsthand and learned the true meaning of since moving here. And now we're in 2024, we're gearing up for another provincial election, and we have our AGM. The last year on the WeCan board, it's been challenging. And I think everyone who's on the board is going to agree with me on this. It's been challenging. We have tackled another word, a different word, which is strategy. And I think we've made a lot of progress on strategy. It has not come without a lot of effort and dedication. There's been a reasonable amount of conflict. We've gotten through that conflict through respect. And again, I think it's commendable what we have achieved. There's still a lot of work to do. I don't think we have a very clear strategy. That is, how are we going to do what we say we want to do? What I want to bring back to, and the message that I'd like to give to the board, to the new board going forward, is values. If we can bring everything back to core values, what is it that means the most to you? We're all in the same boat with respect to, or we're all on the same page with respect to the urgency of climate action. We know what's at stake. That's why we're all here. What does WeCan mean? And who is WeCan? What does that mean to each of us? And I would say, I'm going to bring this back to the word that I was referring to earlier, and that word is community. And I think as a network, I'm going to steal Sebastian's words because they're ringing in my ears all the time. We do not want to be climate action group number 243. That is not how WeCan is valuable. WeCan is valuable when we connect, when we create those valuable connections. We do that through Kappa. And we do that through all of the other work that we do in all of our groups. And I would love for us to be able to create a strategy around that. We have a strategy in place. It needs work. It needs development. It'll always need development. But for me, that word community is very important. So I hope that we carry that forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Next up is Michael Vecchio, but something tells me he's not present. If I look at our membership list, Michael, are you present? Michael from the Kootenays. No. Michael?
He's not here.
Okay, so we'll address that short. Let's go on to Sirat Waraj. Sirat. Floor is yours.
Hi. Thank you. So before I start, I would like to acknowledge that I am living and learning on the territory of the Anishinaabe here in Ontario and Kingston, Ontario. So I grew up in Abbotsford, BC, and I've lived there my whole life, and I'm currently a first-year student going into second year at Queen's University in the health sciences domain, hoping to pursue a public health specialization through the Indigenous pathway. So growing up, I didn't know exactly what climate change was, as many, kids don't know how that is, how that works. But I love to read about natural disasters and our community and nature, and I just love going outside and having fun. So as I read novels, something interested me a lot, that there wasn't actually a representation of climate change in those fictional worlds. And as a person now, I love to transmit knowledge and education through stories, because that's how I think people like to learn. Because in every story, there's a little lesson that you can learn from. So I read books, and I never really knew, there wasn't any association with the real world of climate change and its impacts on our daily life and our environment and our food and our culture as a whole. So I began to write a novel which had themes of climate change. And I like to say that I'm actually negotiating a publishing deal for that novel, which is aimed at the young adults and kids of today's generation, which also teaches them about climate change and what happens if we just keep letting that go. So growing up, I moved around a lot. I've been to Montreal, I've been to Ontario, I've been to BC, I've been to the States. So I've been kind of everywhere, and every culture is different, and in each culture there's different thoughts and emotions about climate change. And some cultures don't really believe climate change, some people heavily believe it, and I would really like to bridge that gap and let everyone be on that same level of climate change. So recently I've started my internship at the MHCCA at BC, which is the Mental Health Climate Change Association. And there I am single-handedly managing all of the public health and the social media relations. So I advertise everything. I advertise research, I knowledge translate research. I contact professors at UBC, at SFU, if they would like to give a talk and transmit generational knowledge towards our new community here. And side note, tomorrow is our knowledge exchange with Dr. Lindsay Galloway. So if anyone would like to attend that, let me know, because that is something that we've been looking forward to for a long time. And I live by one principle in life, and that is, it does take one person it takes one person to get the ball rolling, but you need many more people to keep that ball rolling. So I like to live by that. I like to inspire change. I like to inform people, and hopefully we can get some projects going in our community. And a few examples I have of that is that I work with the Government of Canada, a non-for-profit associated with the Government of Canada. It's a French community, so basically I'm a French liaison between the community and the government, and basically I give out resources about education, about sustainability, about culture differences, so we can try to address that gap that we have at different levels of culture. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. That's great. So in the absence of Robert, before we get to Harry, Michael Vecchio. So I'm going to share the screen for what Michael Vecchio wrote in his application. He says he's 25 years or younger, lives in BC, Nelson, BC, on the Tutana Silix and Sinix people's land, home to the Métis and many diverse Indigenous persons. We respect and commit to a deep consideration of their history, culture, and stewardship. He wrote that I'm an active climate activate that helps other organizations and want to keep up the momentum. I've helped this organization, and I feel I can bring more with being a board member. He was endorsed by Kevin, surname unknown. Having worked closely with Michael for many years, I've witnessed firsthand his unwavering dedication to the environmental causes and his profound commitment to effecting positive change in our community. His extensive experience in the climate crisis, coupled with his passion for sustainability, make him an ideal candidate for this pivotal role. And he has endorsement from Stacey, surname unknown. Throughout our professional acquaintance, Michael has consistently demonstrated an unwavering commitment to environmental sustainability and a deep understanding of the urgent need for climate action. His extensive experience in brackets relevant field industry has equipped him with the knowledge and skills necessary to contribute meaningfully to the board's strategic decisions and initiatives. That's the best I can do. I'll stop sharing. And we don't know why he's not with us. I'll invite Harry to be our final candidate.
Good evening. I live and work in Kakite territory, that is in New Westminster. The Kakite are one of the First Nations that was left with not even a reservation. We live in the most challenging time in human history, as I view the world, the time of the climate emergency. I'm a lawyer. I hope to be able to contribute my training in First Nations land claims and environmental law. I'm also a facilitator. I hope to be able to design community engagement events. And I work in the field of conflict resolution as a coach and mediator. I have extensive experience in program management, and I am a father of 3 and a grandfather of 4. I would appreciate the opportunity to attend board meetings, the opportunity to ask the board to invite our members to participate in developing some specific projects. And when I make suggestions, I may not be fully aware of all the work our board is currently doing. I want to comment on government for a minute. In 2007, the legislature set out the target of reducing greenhouse gas by 40% by 2030. Last December, George Heyman, Minister of the Environment, wrote in his accountability report to the legislature that he would get 96% of the way to our target by 2030. The minister says in his report that after 17 years, we are only 3% of the way to our target. We will have to do the remaining 37% in the next 7 years. To me, this seems a big stretch. Can we meet with the minister and ask him to show his projections? He doesn't seem to be realistic about our accomplishments. And if we're not realistic about where we are, it's difficult for us to figure out how to meet our targets and be realistic about the amount of work we have to do. I would like the opportunity of participating on the board to stimulate an effective network. And here are some examples. Hello, Karen Woodland from Regenerate BC. Regeneration has been discussing the delivery of climate education webinars through the We Can network. I would like to ask the board to explore if we can enlist Regeneration's help to do climate education. We could distribute to our members everything needed to sign up our cities to fund West Coast Environmental Law's project of suing big oil. I think that we could put a package together which would help climate members such as the New Westminster group that I belong to effectively influence our city council to do this kind of task. New West Climate Action Hub is working to develop a template on 15-minute city programs across. We could develop similar programs across the province. I would like to see We Can review and help distribute the template which we're developing in order to move our city on that project. I would like to see us work with West Coast Environmental Law or Eco Justice to prosecute greenwashing under our current presumed consumer protection legislation, and to help improve our greenwashing legislation, ideas to be presented to our MLAs. Hello, Nanaimo Nature Club, if there's anybody here from the club. I've heard from meeting with you that you have around 100 members. I understand that you've been holding Nanaimo Climate Days at the legislature.
30 seconds more, Harry.
I would like to see if we can enlist your help to organizing a climate day at the legislature for a flood of weekend members. We work with a group in New West called Rebel Monkeys. They are a group of middle school students. They've won national awards and won a day at the legislature when the budget came down. They are at the front of the Vancouver Climate March last fall with painted faces. Would the board like to invite Rebel Monkeys to ask us to help us build our social media program? Nothing like young people working on the social media website. These are some of the projects I would like WeCan to consider, and I ask you to consider me for the opportunity to contribute. And that's my pitch to you.
Thanks, Harry. So before I go to Alison about the election, the question has come up, can we elect 7 people? No, we have 6 vacancies. Our board is limited by bylaws to 13 people, and that's it. Secondly, yes, Michael is a real person. He has texted back to us. He wanted to be at this meeting badly, but he had to be at work because they had an incident and needed to attend to it urgently. He does tech work. Michael works on tech stuff behind the scenes, and he's super nerdy in that dimension, and that's why he's needed to help other people out. Alison, I want to hand over to you to explain how the voting is going to happen.
Excellent. So some people, I think, have already figured out the voting, which is awesome. We are using a system called Election Buddy that automatically emailed most people a link to vote. If you did not receive a link and you believe you are a voting member, which means you've been nominated by your member group of WeCan to vote, or you are a board member of WeCan already, and you didn't get your link, then please send me a message and we'll work on troubleshooting that. There will be a link in your email that takes you to the website to vote, as well as an access key and a password. And so you need to enter that information and you'll be able to vote. You will see again the 7 listed candidates with their description within the website, but we could also share in the chat, I think, the Word document that once again lists people's information in a nicely organized way. And we can also have you please vote for 6 people. It's actually going to force you to vote for 6 people. You can't vote for through 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 7, 6. That's the way it's been set up this year. And if anyone has any questions, my email I will put in the chat, and my phone number. But thank you all for participating in the election. This tech system of the Election Buddy means it's a secret ballot. It is a secure election, and so that's why we're going through this extra work in order to get it done correctly, even though it's perhaps a little bit painful technologically. So thank you all, and I'm really looking forward to working with our new board. We will be able to announce the board before the end of the meeting. After people vote, we'll have the immediate results.
So your email will tell you what your access key is, and it'll tell you the password. And I'm going to, Laura Sachs says Mike, she knows Michael, he's a great guy. I think it's worth sharing that because he can't be here in person. And I'm going to just leave it, take 4 or 5 minutes to vote now, and we'll come back. We're just going to stay alive. There's no music, no special stuff lined up, but go ahead and do the voting. Assuming that that's a correct silence of response, Alison, can you announce the results in no particular order?
Sure. So welcome to the board, Calvin, Mariama, Harry, Eric, Seyrat, and Robert. And Michael, so meaning that Michael will not be joining the board at this time.
Well, congratulations to everyone. We will reach out to Michael and make it clear that he can certainly help on one of our teams. He's welcome to help with his skills, because it's unfortunate that he couldn't attend and be here, but that's the way things go. So next up, I'm going to, so everyone, big applause for all our new members. Hey, play with your reaction buttons. Thank you, congratulations everyone. But we're not finished with the meeting yet. I'm going to go back to the hang on a tick. These slides, because we have one more task to do before, two more tasks to do before finishing the meeting. There we go, share slides. We wish to thank our departing directors. There are 5 people who've been on the board with us for the last while. Ricky Stewart, Sunil Singhal, Casey Stein. That's the implication you're going to become an MP, Casey. Lydie Marcen, who's a bird up par excellence. And Sebastian, who's been our bedrock of organizational stuff and things. So I'm going to stop sharing there and ask a big round of applause for everyone for those. Yes, turn your, yes. Unmute yourselves and say a big thank you. Yell out whatever you want.
Yay!
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's impossible to overstate our appreciation for the work that you have put in to get us where we are today, the foundations you've helped to lay, and I know you'll still be around for the future and stuff like that. So going back to the, I think that's the last slide I had, but yeah, almost. So we need a motion to to close the meeting. So I think we'll close the formal AGM and then go into discussion so we can stop recording and stuff like that. Is that an acceptable way to do things? I see heads nodding. Is there a motion to close the AGM? I saw Sharon Cross put her hand up first, seconded by Tom. Any abstentions? Any votes against that? All in favor, raise your hands. I declare, bang with a gavel, I declare the meeting closed.